Hello and welcome to The Cat Who Project. In this episode, we will be looking at the murders of Andy Gans and Cece Cobb in The Cat Who Turned On and Off. We never actually get to meet Andy Gans. His death took place around 2 months before Quillerin even sets foot in Junktown. Andy was highly respected as an antiques dealer and writer, and he was also very well liked. So how did he die? Well, he apparently fell from a ladder, impaling himself on a finial, accidentally of course. So why does Quillerin become suspicious about the circumstances surrounding Andy's death? When Quillerin first arrives in Zwinger Street, he checks out Andy's clothes shop. A drunk man wanders up beside Quillerin and says, "Door locked after murder, stabbed." Iris Cobb also relates to Quillerin that she can't understand how the accident happened. Andy didn't drink and he didn't have any bad habits, and she doesn't think it was suicide. I will say, however, she does try to retract her comments later. This line from chapter 10. Her attempt to reverse herself about Andy's accident was pathetically transparent. Had she guessed that her husband might be implicated, telling Quillerin that it must have been an accident? But Quillerin thinks that's because she might think that Cece could be implicated if it proved to be murder. So why would Cece want to kill Andy? Why would anyone want to kill Andy? He was such a nice guy, right? Well, the more Quillerin investigates, the more he discovers that actually Andy wasn't such a nice bloke. On the night of his death, Mary sees him in a heated discussion with Cece Cobb. Quillerin finds out that Andy was cheating on Mary with Cluthra, one of the three weird sisters, and the same woman whom the married Cece was also having an affair with. Did Cece feel threatened that Andy was trying to steal his lover? Andy had also reported anonymously to the police that Cece was scrounging. An illegal act, sure, but everyone did it. Well, except Andy, of course. And why did he single out Cece in his complaint? Mary thought that Cece had found out that it was Andy who had reported him, and this, of course, would certainly have created bad feeling between the two men. So, did Cece murder Andy? No, he didn't, but he did end up getting murdered himself. Quillerin thinks that Cece found out someone's secret, and that's what got him killed. What was the secret, and whose secret was it? Andy was a writer, usually non-fiction, but recently he had dabbled in fiction and had written a manuscript. A few people knew about it, but no one knew where it was. Quillerin ends up finding the manuscript, thanks to Coco, in the pot-bellied stove in his and Andy's former apartment. The more he reads the manuscript, the more he realizes that the characters were based on the people in Zwinger Street. Was Andy using his manuscript to expose secrets, or was it a tool for blackmail? There was one particular storyline that caught Quillerin's attention. It was about a dope pusher who would sell drugs to addicts when a code word or phrase was used. In the manuscript, the junkie was asking for a Quimper teapot, but was actually in the market for tea, so to speak. Now, when Quillerin first visits his neighbour's shop, Bitter Junk, an impatient customer asks for horse brasses and Ben just shoos him away. He didn't think much of it at the time, but later, when he was helping to look after Iris's shop, another customer had come in asking for horse brasses. Quillerin had not heard of such a thing, and Mary confirmed that horse brasses were not a desirable item. That got Quillerin thinking, was Ben selling drugs using the code words horse brasses? Had enough people mistakenly wandered into the Cobb shop, which of course was right next door to Ben's shop, asking for horse brasses? Quillerin thinks that Cece might have worked it out and was planning on blackmailing Ben, or maybe he just wanted in on the deal. Quillerin learned firsthand how dangerous Ben could be when he went out to the old theatre to do some scrounging. What should have been a fun evening resulted in Quillerin almost having a terrible accident, stepping out on an unstable theatre box, one that Mary knows for certain Ben knew was unsafe. That same evening, after his near miss, Quillerin goes with Ben to the Lion's Tail pub. He witnesses Ben's over-the-top generosity, buying rounds of drinks for the patrons in return for their attention and applause of his theatrical performances. And the patrons appeared to expect Ben's generosity like it was a regular thing. Quillerin couldn't see how Ben's shop could earn such amounts of cash, and if he didn't earn it through selling antiques, where was Ben getting all the money from? All the antique shops in the street seemed to struggle, but as Quillerin investigates, he finds that all the proprietors seem to either have a side hustle, were independently wealthy, or were supplemented by their families, in order to keep their stores open. Everyone, that is, except Ben Nicholas. A couple of other things pointed the finger directly at Ben, but it took some time for Quillerin to firmly resolve these clues. Firstly, the folded cash notes, folded vertically, not in half as most people would fold them. One note was found in Quillerin's apartment and another was found next to Andy's body. Quillerin spent some time creating situations where people would need to fold bills, and all folded in half except Ben. Another clue that Quillerin was following up were the shoe tread marks from the scene of Cece's murder. Quillerin found shoe tread marks that had not matched Cece's boots and the outline of a second car in the snow. Again, Quillerin came up with different scenarios so that the people he suspected would show him their shoe treads, or he would take a quick sneak peek. And he finally traced the shoe tread pattern back to Ben. And the measurements that Quillerin took of the car outline, well, they perfectly matched the odd outline of Ben's car that was missing a front fender. Arch and his wife Rosie also helped Quillerin to place Ben near Andy's shop the night he was murdered. Rosie and Arch had actually made an after-hours appointment with Andy in his shop to look at a chandelier. When they got there, the lights were out and the shop appeared empty. Little did they know that Andy was actually dead on the floor. They asked a man who was walking up the Cobb mansion steps if they could ask the Cobbs to open their shops to view a different chandelier. Rosie identified this man as Ben Nicholas. And finally, the drugs. How could Quillerin prove his drug theory? Well, Coco had a hand in this too. Coco had shown Quillerin a secret passageway between Quillerin's and Ben's apartment via a bookcase. Quillerin knew that both cats had been in Ben's apartment several times, and on this last day, Coco brought Quillerin's attention to a small package on the floor. It was a scrap of silvery paper, a neat rectangle, as wide as a pencil and as thin as a razor blade. It was a deck of heroin, and this confirmed Quillerin's suspicions that Ben was selling drugs. So in the final pages of the book, Quillerin invites Ben into his apartment to test out his theories and to see what reaction he gets from Ben. When he arrives, Quillerin starts by saying that he believed that Cece was pushed, and this stirs a reaction from Ben. Then, at the precise right moment, Coco unexpectedly switches on the tape recorder that had belonged to Cece but had been given to Quillerin by Iris. The men hear Cobb saying in a broken recording, "All over my eyes, you old fool." Then, "Know what you're up to. Think you can get away with anything?" Then, "Over my dead body." Quillerin later thinks that Coco must have turned on the recorder at just the right moment during the confrontation between Cobb and Ben. When Ben hears the recording, he reaches for the hot iron poker with the intent of harming Quillerin. But Coco saves the day yet again, and the very heavy Macintosh coat of arms that Quillerin had placed on the mantel mysteriously, well, not mysteriously, it was pushed by Coco, was mysteriously pushed off at the precise right time and landed on Ben. We later learned that Ben had been pushing heroin and that he would meet his supplier at the abandoned theatre, the one where Quillerin was nearly injured. He would bag up the stuff in 5-grain decks and sell them from his shop when someone used the code words horse brasses. Enough buyers must have wandered mistakenly into Cece's shop that Cece had worked this out on his own. So it seems that, in the end, both Andy and Cece worked out what Ben's real business was, and it didn't end up well for either of them. Once again, the very talented Coco had a lot to do with not only guiding Quillerin to key discoveries, but also saving his life from yet another dangerous murderer. Well, that's it for this episode of The Cat Who Project. I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Rohan. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Bye now.